Hello everyone. Today I'm going to present to you my findings of differential reinforcement to increase bite acceptance of an individual who has autism. The individual that I used for my study is a young boy, and for his protection and dignity, we'll call him Max. He's a 4-year-old boy with autism. He was diagnosed about 2 years ago. He has two older siblings, and one of which his parents believe that he does have autism. However, he has not been diagnosed. But they do see a lot of similarities between his older brother and Max that Max is exhibiting that his older brother exhibited at his age as well. Max has never received autism services prior to coming to our center, so this is his first experience in an ABA field. His parents just put him on the gluten-free, casein-free diet per the recommendation of the center dietitian. The dietitian believed that the behaviors that Max was exhibiting were directly related to his diet. Max's diet prior to the study involved cookies, candies, chips, all sorts of junk food that we may find as comfort foods, but are not necessarily nutritious to a 4-year-old boy. So his parents wanted to go ahead and put him on the gluten-free, casein-free diet, like I said, per the dietitian's recommendations. However, it is such a huge diet change from what he has been experienced to having that it caused a lot of maladaptive behaviors. And maladaptive behaviors for him in this case include crying and noncompliance. There was no physical aggression whatsoever. So his parents really wanted us to work hard on it to increase his bite acceptance of gluten-free foods because they really wanted him to be on this diet. Furthermore, his parents also adopted the diet themselves for the entire family. So the entire family is going through this diet change in order to help Max through this transition. So like I've already mentioned, the target behavior is bite acceptance. And for this study, I defined bite acceptance as the following. Measured as any time a bite was offered, the individual would independently consume the bite entirely without spitting it out. We would monitor his bite acceptance closely, and if he was stockpiling any food in his mouth without swallowing it, we would not count that as an accepted bite until the bite had made it down his throat and he had chewed it up completely. The measurement that we used for this study was frequency. Like I mentioned earlier, anytime a bite was offered and the child accepted it by swallowing it entirely, we would mark one occurrence of it occurring. I used an ABAB design starting off with a week of baseline data, just offering him the food, having it presented, but also offering him the non-gluten-free options. That way we ensure that the child was eating some sort of food. Regardless if it was nutritious or not, he was getting some sort of sustenance during the lunch period. After a week of baseline data that was conducted, we went ahead and implemented 2 weeks worth of the intervention, which I will discuss shortly. After 2 weeks of the intervention, we returned back to the baseline for a week, same setup as before to observe how he responded to both gluten-free foods and non-gluten-free foods. And then we did a week's worth of the intervention once more to see if it really truly had an effect on increasing his bite acceptance. For the treatment, what we did was we presented all his gluten-free foods in front of him. Prior to that, we did a preference assessment. We wanted to assess what edible reinforcers that he found reinforcing so we could use that to our advantage. So every time he would take a bite of the gluten-free food, we would reinforce it with one of his other gluten-free foods that he found more reinforcing than the others. For example, you can find gluten-free cookies out there, and he did find gluten-free cookies reinforcing. So we used those cookies to reinforce the bites of the non-preferred gluten-free foods, such as like gluten-free chicken nuggets. He didn't find those as favorable as the cookies, so we used the cookies to reinforce every time he took a bite of the chicken nuggets. For the inter-observer agreement, we had myself as a therapist conducting the intervention, while the BCBA also took treatment fidelity and observed the bites and data that I was taking. At the end of lunch, we would match up our data, and our IOA levels remained consistently high, around anywhere from 80% all the way up to 100%. So we were seeing a lot of the same stuff, which was awesome because it proved that we were implementing the intervention effectively and our observation skills were on par. For the results, I have the graph printed out. To me, it's hard to see because it's backwards on my screen, but what you can see is over here is the week's worth of the initial baseline. This is measuring how often he took the bites. So he wouldn't, of the gluten-free foods, you can tell that he wasn't really interested in the gluten-free foods in the first week of the baseline. When we implemented the intervention, it skyrocketed. Returned to the baseline, dropped again, and then the intervention again, he went skyrocketing and eating those gluten-free foods, which is awesome. We didn't get around to generalizing it since lunch only occurs during my shift, so that was one of the limitations to the study. We would like to conduct it in the home setting to see how he would react when his parents presented him the food as well. Other limitations, like I said, generalization didn't really occur in this study because we were in one setting, one therapist implementing the study as well. Also, the parents decided that they may go away with the gluten-free diet altogether, so it's really hard to see if this intervention was effective if they're eventually going to drop this diet altogether. We really encourage the parents to continue with the diet so that none of his behaviors caused maintained behavior. So that's still a work in progress. Stay tuned. If you guys are interested in learning more, let me know. And that is my study. Thank you for listening.